Every morning began the same way for me. Without waiting for the alarm clock, my body had been trained over years of working as an accountant to wake up at 6:30. Even now, at 67 and 5 years retired, that habit hadn't gone away. It was like a part of me, automatic and unwavering. I stretched and slowly got up, wincing at the slight ache in my back. Time was starting to leave its mark, but I always tried to hide it, especially from the kids. The first thing I did was make coffee, something that had become as much a part of my routine as the waking itself. As the water boiled, I shuffled to the bathroom. There, a woman with tired grey eyes and hair pulled into a neat bundle stared back at me in the mirror. Once my hair had been dark brown, soft and flowing. Roger, my late husband, used to love running his fingers through it. I missed him terribly, even after 5 years. His sudden death from a heart attack one April morning, while he was digging in the garden of our big house, still felt like a cruel shock. Sometimes I found myself thinking he was lucky to go so suddenly, doing something he loved, without suffering from a long illness. But I didn't feel lucky. Not without him. The house, our home, felt too empty. The memories echoed off the walls and I couldn't escape them. After the funeral, I decided to sell our family home. The kids, of course, didn't like it. Especially Mercuria, my oldest daughter. She threw such a tantrum. "Mom, are you crazy?" she had yelled. "This is our home, this is our history. My history with Dad is here." But I had replied quietly, "And you children have been living your own lives for a long time." It was true. Mercuria and Orson had both long since left the nest. Mercuria, with her husband Willoughby and their 2 teenagers, rented a place in a modest neighborhood in Pasadena. Orson, on the other hand, changed rentals constantly, never able to decide where he wanted to settle. I grabbed my coffee and sat by the window, watching the sunrise over Pasadena. The clock read 7 in the morning. Mercuria would be calling soon, asking me to pick up the kids from school. It was a routine 3 or 4 times a week. Her reasons always varied. "I have an important meeting," she'd say. "I'll be late today," she'd add. But no matter the reason, it always ended the same. I had to drop everything and rush across town to help out with the kids. It wasn't that I minded. I loved my grandchildren, 15-year-old Rowena and 13-year-old Llewellyn. But with each passing year, it was becoming harder and harder to ignore the growing resentment I felt toward my children. They'd become so used to my help, like I was just a backup. When I sold the family home and bought my small apartment, I thought it would be the right thing to do. Mercuria and Willoughby dreamed of owning their own home, but couldn't afford a down payment. "Mum, you don't know how hard it is to get a mortgage now," Mercuria had told me. "We'll never get out of renting." So, I helped. I bought them a house, small but cozy, in a nice neighborhood near the school the kids attended. It took almost all the money from the sale of our home, but I felt it was the right choice. I explained to the kids, "One thing though, the house will be in my name, not because I don't trust you, but for safety. You know, I'll never sell it. It will be yours one day, and then it will go to your children." Mercuria wrinkled her nose but didn't argue. Orson, on the other hand, was furious. "How come they get the house and I get nothing?" he shouted. "I'm your child too." I tried to explain, tiredly, "Orson, you don't have a family. When you settle down and have kids, we'll figure something out." "Sure," he snorted. "By then, there'll be nothing left of your money." He was right. There was barely anything left now. Just my modest pension and some savings for a rainy day. But I didn't regret helping them. Not at first. Anyway, at 8 a.m., the phone rang. I smiled. It was Mercuria, always punctual when it came to requests. "Mum, hi." Her voice sounded rushed as usual. "I have an emergency at work today. Can you pick up the kids from school?" I won't be off until 6. Sure, honey, I said, holding back a sigh. It was the usual. Yes, thank you. You're a lifesaver, she said quickly. Oh, and make them dinner too. I'll be late, and Willoughby's on duty tonight. Willoughby worked security at the mall, or so Mercuria claimed. I sometimes doubted that. It seemed like every time I checked on the grandkids he was home. But I didn't say anything. Okay, I replied. I'll make lasagna. Rowena loves it. Great, thanks. Sorry I have to run, love you, bye. Before I could say a word, the phone was off the hook. I put the phone away and sighed. I'd made plans to meet Gladys at the cafe, then go to the library. Now I'd have to cancel. I dialed her number. Gladys, hi. I'm sorry, but we'll have to reschedule. Mercuria asked me to pick up the kids again. Oh, Bal. Gladys sounded disapproving. Again? When are you going to stop letting her treat you like this? They're my grandchildren, Gladys. I can't say no to them, I replied softly. But Gladys didn't let it slide. Your daughter. They're using you as a free babysitter. Did they ever ask if you had plans of your own? I didn't respond. Gladys was right. But admitting it out loud meant admitting that I'd let my kids turn me into a servant. Let's reschedule for tomorrow, I said quickly, changing the subject. Okay, she said. But just know, I don't approve. You deserve more respect than this. After the call, I packed up and headed to the store to get groceries for the lasagna. It was a warm day, so I decided to walk, to stretch my legs. On my way to the store, I thought about Gladys's words. She wasn't the first one to say it. Even my sister Octavia, who lived in San Francisco, had asked me the same question in every phone conversation. You're 67, not 97, she'd said. You should have your own life. I promised her I'd think about it. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and nothing changed. I was still at the beck and call of my children, always ready to drop everything and come to the rescue in the store. Emmett, a neighbor, Mrs. Caulfield, a woman about my age, an energetic widow who after her husband's death had opened Asmal Dress, making gaking Elia Bal, my dear Mrs. Field, exclaimed, I haven't seen you for a long time, still nursing your grandchildren. Yes, I'm picking them up again today and I'm going to dance. Class, boasted the neighbor, can you imagine at our age? But the instructor says I have talent. I smiled politely, feeling a prick off. Envy Mrs. Field was enjoying life, trying new things, making friends. And May was stuck in the role of grandmother's errand girl. When I got home, I started making lasagna. My hands did the usual work, but my thoughts wandered far away. I remembered how, after retirement, I dreamed of traveling Roger, and I had talked about it so much. Italy, France, Greece, but then Roger died, and the dream stayed dreams. Maybe it's not too late. I could put some money away from my pension, maybe go to at least a neighboring state, see something new. The phone rang again. This time it was Orson, Mum. Hi. His voice sounded deliberately cheerful, and I immediately realized that me son was going to ask for money again. Hello, Orson, how are you? Oh, nothing much, listen, Mom, I'm having a little financial difficulty. I was wondering if you could lend me a couple hundred before payday. Paycheck to paycheck was our standing joke in the last 5 years. Orson had never paid me back for borrowed money. Orson, last time I told you I couldn't give you any more. I'm running out of money myself. But Mom, there's a cranky note in his voice. I really need it. I can't pay their rent, they'll evict me. I rubbed my eyes tiredly. It's always the same, okay? I can give you $100, but this is the last time, Orson. I mean it, thank you, Mommy. He's so happy right away. I'll pick them up tonight, okay? As I hung up the phone, I felt a familiar sense of disappointment. I'd given in again. I'd let things happen again. And I knew Orson wouldn't spend that money on rent. But on another whim at 3 o'clock, I was already standing at the school gate waiting for my grandchildren. They were among the last to come out. Rowena, tall with dark hair pulled back in a sloppy ponytail, and Llewellyn, thin and ungainly with glasses. that always slipped down his nose. "Hello, grandmother," Rowena said without much enthusiasm. "Hello, children," I smiled. "How was your day?" "Fine," Llewellyn shrugged. "Will you be with us again until tonight?" "Yeah, your mom's working late. Cool, his," grandson said suddenly lively. "So you'll cook dinner. Your food is much tastier than mom's." I smiled involuntarily. It's nice when your efforts are appreciated, even if it's a child at home. I helped my grandchildren with their homework, then we finished Thelasagna together and put it in the oven while the food was cooking. Rowena went to her room to socialize with friends and Llewellyn settled down in front of the TV. I took a seat next to my grandson Lou. I asked cautiously, "Do you know if your parents are going anywhere soon, maybe planning a vacation?" Llewellyn pulled away from the screen and looked at me in surprise. "How do you know that Mom said it was a surprise?" My heart twitched. "What kind of surprise?" "Well, we're going to Hawaii next month. Mom said it'll be our first real family vacation, and Uncle Orson's coming too." I felt my insides tighten. "A family vacation, Orson too? And I'm not invited? That's wonderful." I forced out a smile. "Sue, when are you going?" 3 weeks from today. My mom already bought the tickets and booked the hotel. There'll be a pool and a beach right next to the house. Llewellyn talked excitedly about the upcoming trip and I listened half-heartedly, trying to cope with my emotions. Why hadn't Marcia said anything to me? Why didn't she invite me after all? I'm a mother, a grandmother, part of the family. That evening when Mercuria arrived, I decided to ask her directly. I waited until the children had gone to their rooms and turned to my daughter. "Marcia, Llewellyn told me about your trip to Hawaii." The daughter tensed her face, taking on a slightly guilty expression. "Oh, that yes, we decided to take a little vacation. Why didn't you say anything, Tom?" Marcia shrugged, avoiding looking me in the eye. "I was going to, I just kept forgetting." "I take it you're going as a family, Orson too?" "Yeah, we decided to get a very own together. Willoughby had found a very good deal, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity." I took a deep breath and asked a question I already knew the answer to. Marcia finally looked at me, and in her gaze I saw what I'd been afraid to see, a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Mom, I'm sorry, but there's no ticket for you. It's only for our young company. You realize it will be hard for you to keep up with us, and we want to be active, diving, surfing, hiking." "I understand," I replied quietly, feeling my insides grow cold. "Of course I'm too old for that kind of fun. Don't be offended." Minka patted my arm. "We'll bring you back some souvenirs. Besides, we need someone to watch the house while we're Gunyoa." Not going to say no, I looked at my daughter, and for the first time in a long time I saw her for what was a selfish, spoiled woman who took her mother's care for granted and had no qualms about using me. "Of course I will." I smiled, but the smile didn't touch my eyes. "You can count on me. I've been up all night." Marcia's words rattled around in my head like a broken record. "There's no ticket for you," as if I were a stranger, not a mother who'd given them last of her money in the morning and managed to doze off. But I was awakened by a phone call. The clock read 7:30 in the morning. "Mom, are you asleep?" Marcia's voice sounded cheerful and carefree, as if last night's conversation hadn't happened. "Not anymore." I answered, sitting up in bed. "Listen, I have a favor to ask of you. I need to go shopping today to get some things for the trip. Could you babysit the kids? School ends at 12 o'clock. Today it's some kind of Teacher's Day. Willie's at work, and I really need to make it before the sale." I clenched my phone so tight my knuckles turned white. Yesterday, she'd refused to take me on a trip, and today she was asking me to help pack. A wave of indignation rose up inside, but I suppressed it as usual. "Okay." I answered after a pause. "What time should I be there?" "By 12:15. If you can, Omen, you're just saving me. I'll leave the money for the pizza. No need to cook, okay? You seem a bit weird today. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine. I just didn't sleep well." "Oh well, I'll see you then." Marcia disconnected without waiting for my reply. I slowly put the phone down and got out of bed in the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to wash away the bitterness that had built up inside. The mirror reflected a tired woman with a faded look. When did it start? When did I let the children turn me into a maid who could be summoned at any moment after breakfast? I decided to call my sister Octavia always said what she thought, not caring about the feelings of the person she was talking to. That's exactly what I needed, right? Now, Bal, my sister rejoiced. What a surprise, you never call in the morning. I need advice. Octi, I said, deliberately using her childhood nickname. Did your kids do something again? Octavia sounded annoyed. They're going to Hawaii, the whole family Orsons. Going with them, and you weren't invited. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Marcia said they didn't have a ticket for me, that it was only for their young company. Octavia swore so colorfully that I smiled involuntarily. My little sister always knew how to express emotion. And what did you do? She asked. Nothing. I sighed. What could I have done? Oh my God, Bal, you're their mother. You gave them a home. They owe you everything. And they couldn't find a ticket for you. They didn't. Mercuria said I'd just be in their way, that they wanted a vacation diving. Surfing, Octavia interrupted. Robert and I were in Mau last year, and it's full of old people. There's something for everyone. They just don't want you because they're used to hosting you. You know what the funny thing is? What I bet they're paying for this trip with the money you give them. How much have you given Orson in the last year, eh? 02. I didn't say anything. It was a lot more than that, Bal. Listen to me. Octavia's voice became serious. You are letting them sit on your neck. It has to stop. If you don't set boundaries now, they'll keep using you until you lay down or die. And then they'll just find someone else. But they're my kids. They're grown men who don't respect their own mother. Octavia cut her off. It's time to teach them a lesson. What kind of lesson? That's for you to decide. But if I were you, I'd show them what it means. Torcus Barrel. Crumpton. After talking to my sister, I sat by the window looking out at the street passers-by, were hurrying about their business, some to work, some to the store, some to walk the dog. Everyone had their own lives, and what did I have? I existed only in my children's schedules as a handy tool to be used and put aside when not needed. Maybe Octavia was right. Maybe it's time to teach them a lesson. At 12:15, I was already standing outside Mercuria's house. I'd bought for them with the money from the sale of my and Roger's family nest egg. The house I'd retained ownership of, the only precaution I'd taken when I'd given them everything. I had Marcia open the door, dressed as if for a fashion show. Skinny jeans, open-shouldered blouse, high heels. Oh, Mom, you're just in time, she pecked me on the cheek and grabbed her purse. The kids are in their rooms. The pizza money is in the kitchen. I'll be there by 7. Oh, maybe later. Don't call me. I'll be busy, sure. I nodded. Have a good shopping day. Oh, yeah. I almost forgot. Marcia stopped in the doorway. I have to go shopping for swimsuits for the kids tomorrow. Will you be able to babysit them again? I looked at my daughter and something inside me broke. All the years of patience, all trying to be a good mom, all the sacrifices, and this is how they repaid me. Not even invited on a family trip. But they're not shy about asking me to help them prepare for it. Of course, I replied with a smile that didn't affect my eyes. I'm always happy to help. You're the best. Masha waved her hand and ran out the door. I watched her get into her car and drive away. Then I walked slowly into the living room and sank into a chair. The house was quiet. The kids must have been sitting with their headphones on. I looked around the room. A big TV on the wall, expensive furniture that Marcia bought at a discounted sales, but still bragged that they were exclusive models. On the walls were frame photographs. Mercury, Willoughby, the kids, even Orson. I wasn't in any of them. It was like I didn't exist for them except when they needed something from me. That's when the decision was born, a firm, irrevocable decision that I wasn't going to change. I pulled my cell phone out of my purse and dialed a number. Hello, Fern? It's Bal Crumpton. Remember how you said that if I ever thought of selling the house my kids live in, you'd have a buyer? Are you still working at that real estate agency? Fern Abbott was a co-worker of mine at the insurance company. A few years ago she changed careers and became a realtor. We met for coffee occasionally, and she mentioned more than once that the real estate market in Pasadena was booming, especially in the area Where my children's house was located, Barrel Fern rejoiced, of course. I remember, yes, I'm still with the agency. Even made partner, are you serious about selling more than serious? I replied, the house is fully deeded to me. There are no liens, I want to sell it as soon as possible, that can be arranged. Fern's voice became businesslike. I have a client who's looking. In that exact neighborhood he can pay cash, so it'll be a quick transaction when can. I see the house. I wondered, Mersha won't be back until tonight. The children are in their rooms and aren't likely to come out. Could you come over right now? I asked. I'm in the house now and I can show you around. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Fern replied and disconnected. I got up and walked around the house, looking in every room as if I was seeing it for the first time. For 5 years I'd paid for its upkeep, its repairs, its taxes. 5 years the kids had lived here, thinking it was their property. Well, it's time to remind them who really owns this house. Rowena and Lulan were indeed sitting in their rooms, staring at their phones. They barely noticed me stopping by. I decided not to tell them about the realtor's upcoming visit. Why worry the kids before they knew it? It wasn't their fault. Their parents had raised them to be as selfish as they were. Fern arrived even earlier than promised. She took a professional look at the house from the outside, then went inside and began her inspection. Excellent condition, she commented, making notes on a clipboard. Nice layout. How many bedrooms? 4, 2 bathrooms. Perfect grounds are well maintained. The backyard is spacious. Bar, this house is worth a lot more than it was 5 years ago. And you bought it, the market's gone up a lot. I nodded, half listening. I wasn't interested in profit. I was interested in how quickly the deal could be done. Fern honestly, how fast can you find a buyer and close a deal? The realtor looked up at me, and there was a look of surprise in her eyes. You're really in a hurry, aren't you? Well, considering I already have an interested client with cash, I'd say a week, 2 weeks tops. But the kids won't mind. It's their house. It's my house, I said firmly. It's in my name. I pay the taxes and the insurance, and the kids, they'll have plenty of time to find another place to live. Fern whistled. Well, that's up to you. But if I were you, I'd give them a little advance warning. It's best not to just drop this kind of news on them out of the blue. I'll tell them when the contract is signed. I said not before. When Fern left, promising to contact me tomorrow, I returned to the living room and sat down in the chair again. A strange calmness swept over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt in control of the situation. No longer was I an invisible person remembered only when help was needed. I was Bal Crumpton, a woman who had finally decided to stand up for herself that evening, when Mersha returned with bags from the expensive stores. I was just leaving. No, thank you so much, chirped as she put the purchases on the couch I bought. So many things. Look what a dress and these sandals, they'll look perfect on the beach. I looked at my daughter and wondered how she didn't notice the change in me, or maybe she just doesn't want to notice. I'm glad you were able to find everything you wanted, I said in a steady voice. The kids ate pizza. Llewellyn had homework, but Rowanay needed help with her history project. Yeah, sure, Mersha replied absent-mindedly, admiring her new purchases. So can you babysit them again tomorrow? I have to go to the mall on the other side of town. It has the best selection of swimsuits. I smiled. Of course I can. What time should I get there? Saying time, 12:15. They have a short day again. Okay, I'll be there. You're a miracle, Mom. Mersha kissed me on the cheek and immediately went back to her shopping. I stepped out of the house and took a deep breath of the evening air. Pasadena was bathed in the orange rays of the setting sun. I walked to the bus stop and thought about how my life was about to change. For the first time in years, I would be living for myself, not for the kids who took me for granted. The phone in my purse vibrated. A message from Fern. Talked to a client. He's very interested and is ready to see the house tomorrow. Are you sure you want to proceed? I stopped, reread the message, and replied with one word, absolutely at home. I took a long hot shower, changed into my favorite pajamas, and sat with a cup of herbal tea by the window. Tomorrow will start a new chapter of my life. I will no longer be invisible. I will no longer be the one for whom there was no ticket. I smiled at my reflection in the window. glass, and for the first time in a long time I saw in it, not a tired old woman, but a man who was ready to fight for his happiness. The next morning I woke up with an unfamiliar sense of determination. It was as if the stone that had been pressing on my chest for years had finally rolled away. I knew what to do, and for the first time in a long time, I was acting for myself, not for anyone else. Fern called as I was finishing my second cup of coffee. Bal, good morning. My client can see the house today at 11 o'clock. Is that convenient for you? I glanced at my watch. 9:30, time enough to pack and arrive at the house before Mersha and the kids. Yes, it is. I'll be there at 10:30. That's great. Also, have looked over the deed since. The house is all yours. There's no impediment to a quick transaction if the client likes it. We can draw up a preliminary contract today. That sounds great, I replied, feeling the confidence growing inside me. After the call, I quickly packed and called a cab. Usually, I saved money and took the bus, but today was a special day. I allowed myself a small luxury, deciding that this was just the beginning of my new life. On the way to the kids' house, I pondered the future. If the deal went through, I would have a decent amount of money. Some of it I could spend on a small house for myself, not in Pasadena, where prices were exorbitant, but in some quiet suburb. The rest of the money would be invested to ensure a peaceful old age without having to ask the children for help. The cab stopped in front of a familiar house. I paid and got out, looking around the street. The neighborhood was really nice, a quiet green, with good infrastructure. No wonder the demand for real estate here was high. The house was quiet and empty, Mercuria, and the kids weren't due back until 12. I had more than an hour to prepare for a potential buyer's visit. I walked through the rooms, tidying up, adjusting the cushions on the couch, dusting the shelves. It was strange to think that soon this house would belong to complete strangers. At precisely 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Fern did not arrive alone. With her was a representative middle-aged man in an expensive suit. Bar, meet Maxwell Thorne. Fern introduced him. Mr. Thorne, this is Bal Crumpton, the owner of the house. Nice to meet you. Maxwell shook my hand with a firm handshake. It's a beautiful neighborhood. You've been looking at property here for my family for a long time. Do you have children? I asked as I led them into the living room. Yes, two. My son is 14, my daughter 12. We're moving from San Diego for work, and we need a house in this particular neighborhood near a good school. I nodded. The school really was great. One of the reasons I chosen this house for Mercuria and her family. Maxwell began his tour of the house, asking specific questions about utilities, the age of the roof, the condition of the foundation. It was obvious he was knowledgeable about real estate and knew exactly what he was looking for. The house is in great condition, he said when we returned to the living room after the inspection. Fern said, you want to do the deal quickly. I've got cash, so it won't be a problem. What price are you asking? Fern said the amount we discussed the day before, and I saw Maxwell raise his eyebrows slightly. Apparently he'd expected a higher price. That's very reasonable, he said. I agree. When can we draw up the papers? Even today, Fern replied. I can have that preliminary contract ready by this evening. If you are satisfied with the terms, we can sign it, and you will make a deposit. It will take about a week to finalize. That's fine with me. Maxwell nodded. I'd like to move in as soon as possible, say 2 weeks. I hesitated. Messia and her family were supposed to fly to Hawaii in 3 weeks. If they vacated the house in 2, they'd have to live somewhere for another week before they left. On the other hand, why should I care about their problems? It's not like they thought of me when they planned their family vacation. 2 weeks is fine, I said firmly. You'll notify the current tenants today. Maxwell looked a little surprised. The tenants? I thought you lived here yourself. No, I shook my head. My daughter and her family live here, but the house is all mine, and they know I can sell it at any time. It was a lie. Mersha had no idea I was considering selling, but I didn't want to get into the details of family relationships in front of strangers right now. I see Maxwell nodded. Well, I hope it won't be a problem. I'll wait for a call about the preliminary contract. When Maxwell left, Fern lingered. Bal, did you really not warn your daughter about the sale? She asked with concern. No, I shook my head. And please don't tell them if you cross paths with them before the contract is signed. I'll explain everything myself when the time comes. Whatever you say, Fern shrugged. But I advise Yonat to delay this conversation. It's better to hear such news from you, not from me or anyone else. I promised to think about what she said, and Fern left saying she'd contact me tonight about the preliminary contract. Left alone, I sat down on the couch and took a deep breath. Everything was happening so fast that I barely had time to realize what had happened yesterday. I had been a beautiful mother and grandmother who had obeyed her children's requests without complaint, and today I was selling the house I had bought for them without constung or warning. Was I doing the right thing? Was it too cruel? These questions swirled in my mind, but every time the doubt began to overwhelm me. I remembered Mersha's words, there was no ticket for you, and determination. Returned at 12:15 MCA. Arrived with the children, I greeted them with a smile, as if nothing had happened. Mom, your harem, he looked happy. That's great, I can go right away. That mall is having discounts today. I have to get there before the crowds. Sure, honey. I nodded. Go ahead, kids. I can handle it. You're the best. MCA hugged me and sprinted out the door without even asking how the kids or I were doing. Rowena and Llewellyn scattered to their rooms as usual. I made lunch, simple pasta with a sauce that the children loved, and called them to the table. Grandma, is it true that in Hawaii you can swim with dolphins? Llewellyn asked, eating the pasta. Yes, there are special tours, I answered, trying to speak in a normal voice. Are you and Mom planning one? Yeah, and we're going to learn how to surf. Dad says I'll learn quickly because I have a good sense of balance, I'm sure you. Well, I smiled. What about you, Rowena? What do you want to do? In Hawaii, my oldest granddaughter shrugged her shoulders. I don't know, maybe sunbathe on the beach. Take pretty pictures for Instagram. Sounds great. I nodded, suppressing a prick of resentment. The kids talked about the trip like I didn't exist. None of them said, I wish you were coming with us, or we'll miss you. After lunch, I helped Llewellyn with his homework, then we watched a movie. Rowena never left her room until just before Mersha returned. Her daughter returned, laden with bags from various stores. Her eyes glistened with excitement. Mom, you have no idea what discounts there are. I bought everything we need, and more. Look at the swimsuits for the kids. I obediently admired the purchases, nodded in response to the enthusiastic stories about how Mercuria had snatched an expensive swimsuit for half price and waited patiently for her to finish. By the way, I have to go to the beauty parlor tomorrow to get a manicure and pedicure before my trip. You'll babysit, won't you? Mercuria asked, as if it were a given. Of course. I smiled. I'm always happy to help. You're the best mom ever. Mersha kissed me on the cheek. I don't know what we'd do without you. You'll find out soon enough, I thought, but said out loud, I love you too, darling. In the evening back home, I got a text from Fern. The tentative contract was ready, and we could sign it tomorrow. Maxwell had already put a deposit in the agency's account, which confirmed that he was serious. I replied that I'd be at Fern's office at 9 o'clock in the morning before I went to Merck. Then I opened a real estate listing website on me tablet and started looking for a house for myself. I knew what I wanted: a small one-story house with a small garden where I could grow flowers like I'd always dreamed of. Not in Pasadena, where prices were exorbitant, but in some quiet town nearby. After an hour of searching, I found a few options that interested me. Own in particular was a cozy cabin in Sierra Madre, just 20 minutes from Pasadena. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, small garden with an orange tree, and the price was reasonable. I could buy it with cash after selling Mercy's shoes, and still have enough left over for a hassle-free life. I wrote down the contacts of the realtor who was selling the house, deciding to call him tomorrow after I signed the preliminary contract with Maxwell. I stayed up most of the night thinking about my plan. Part of me still had doubts. Is it too cruel to the children? But the other part, the stronger part, said it was fair. They'd made the choice to exclude me from their lives, using me only when they needed something. Morning, the doubts had receded. I was sure of my decision. The kids needed to realize that their Actions had consequences and that I wasn't a silent shadow to be ignored at. Fern's office everything went quickly, and without complications Maxwell was already there, and we signed the preliminary contract according to its terms. The full deal was to be finalized in a week, followed by the handover of the keys in another week. Monsieur and her family had 2 weeks to find a new place. When do you plan to tell them? Fern asked when Maxwell had left tonight. I replied, when I get back from them. Good luck. Fern squeezed my hand. And if you need help finding a new place for yourself, I'm always willing to help. Thanks, but I've already found something. I showed her a picture of a house in Sierra Madre. I'm going to call a realtor today. That's a great choice. Fern approved. Sierra Madre is a beautiful town, quiet, peaceful, with a good retirement community. You'll love it. After I met with Fern, I called the realtor who was handling the house in Sierra Madre. I was lucky the house was still on the market, and I could see it this afternoon. I made an appointment for 3 o'clock. I should have enough time to drive from Mura to Sierra Madre and back before she got home from the beauty parlor. The day passed like a blur. I sat with my grandchildren, made them lunch, helped with their lessons, but my thoughts were far away. I imagined how I would live in my new house, grow flowers, maybe get a cat. I'd go dancing like Mrs. Caulfield or take an art class. I'd always wanted to learn to paint. I'll travel not to Europe as Roger. And I dreamed that at least to the surrounding towns, I would finally have a life of my own. At 3 o'clock, leaving the kids to watch a movie, I told them I had to run errands for a couple of hours. They just nodded absent-mindedly, not looking away from me. The house in Sierra Madre was even nicer than it looked in the pictures. It was small but cozy, with a stunning view of the mountains. The garden, though small, was well maintained. The previous owners clearly loved plants. The orange tree I saw in the photo was full of fruit. The house is in excellent condition, said the realtor, a man in his 50s named Garland. The previous owners, an older couple, are moving to Florida to be near their children. They upgraded everything here before they sold it: roof, plumbing, electrical. They even replaced the kitchen appliances with new ones. I walked through the rooms and felt like this house was exactly what I needed: a bright living room with large windows, a comfortable kitchen, a bedroom with a view of the mountains, and a second bedroom that I could turn into an office or craft room. I'll take it, I told Garland when the tour was over. I could put down a deposit right now. The realtor was surprised at my determination, but quickly completed the necessary paperwork. We agreed that the full transaction would be finalized in a week, in parallel with the sale of Mara's house. Walking back to my daughter's house, I felt strangely relieved. The plan had been set in motion, and there was no turning back. In 2 weeks, I would have a new home and a new life, and the children will be forced to grow up and learn to live without my constant support. Murcha returned from the beauty parlor with a flawless manicure and freshly styled hair. Mom, how are the kids? Everything okay? She asked, kicking off her shoes in the hallway. Everything's fine, I answered. They 8 did their homework and are watching a movie. That's great, Mercy agloed. Listen, can you get here early tomorrow, Willoughby? And I want to go to a restaurant to celebrate our upcoming trip. I smiled my kindest smile. Sure, honey. What time do you need me there? 10 o'clock. In the morning. The kids don't have school. They have some kind of teacher's day, and we want to have lunch at that new place downtown. It's hard to get a reservation there. I'll be there at 10 o'clock. I nodded. You're the best, Mersha hugged Mooley. Mum, I don't know what we'd do without you. You'll find out soon enough. I thought again, but all I said out loud was, you're welcome, dear. That's what family is for. As I drove home, I thought about how the kids would react when they found out the house was sold. First, there would be shock, then anger, perhaps tears and accusations. They'll think I'm a traitor, a cruel, selfish person. They'll say I ruined their lives, but deep down I knew I was doing the right thing. The children needed to understand that their behavior had consequences, that you can't treat your mother like a servant and then expect her to continue to put up with the very thing. And most importantly, I was finally starting to live for myself. I would have my own home, my own hobbies, my own life. I would no longer be invisible, existing only for the convenience of others. I would be Bal Crumpton, a woman who at 67 had decided to make a fresh start, 3 weeks flew by faster than I expected. So much happened in that time that, at times, I was dizzy with the speed of events, as I had planned a week after signing the preliminary agreement with Maxwell. The deal was finalized the same day I closed on the purchase of the cabin in Sierra Madre. A couple more days later, I told Marcia about the sale of the house. The reaction was exactly what I expected. Shock, disbelief, anger. Mercuria screamed that I had betrayed them, that I had no right to do that, that they would now be homeless. Wilbur tried to calm his wife, but in his eyes I saw the same anger and confusion. How could you? Mama, Marcia sobbed. We're leaving for Hawaii in a week. Where are we going to live when we get back? You have 30 days from the time you receive the official notice, I answered calmly. That gives you more than 3 weeks after you return from vacation, plenty of time to find a new place to live. But we can't afford to rent a house in this neighborhood, Mercuria exclaimed. You know the prices here. The children will have to change schools. I'm sorry, I said, though I didn't really feel sorry. But the decision has been made. The house is sold and the new owners move in 30 days. What about you? Willoughby asked suddenly. You gave almost all the money from the sale of your house to buy this one. Where are you going to live? I bought a little house in the Sierra Madre. I answered. It's much more modest than this one, but it'll be fine for me alone. Is that what you do with your own children? Marcia looked at me with unconcealed anger. Throw us out on the street and buy your own house? I'm not throwing you out on the street. My voice remained calm. You have time to find a new place to live, and I've invested enough in this family over the years. It's time for you to take care of yourself. I'll never forgive you for this, Marcia hissed, wiping away her tears. Never. I'm sorry you feel that way, I replied. But sometimes kids need to grow up and start taking responsibility for themselves. It's high time you and Willoughby did after that conversation. Mercuria didn't speak to me again until she left for Hawaii. Orson, when he heard about the sale of the house, came rushing in, accusing me of depriving him of his rightful inheritance. I reminded him Faith never had a claim to the house and that I had said repeatedly that the property was titled to me. You can't doff it, he shouted. It's not fair. You promised that the house would stay in the family. I never promised that, I said firmly. I said the house would be registered in my name for my safety, and know I have every right to use it. Orson left slamming the door and hasn't been in touch since when my grandchildren heard about the sale of the house. They looked at me with bewilderment and resentment, not understanding why their grandmother, who had always been so kind and caring, had suddenly done something so cruel. I did not explain to them the true reasons for my decision. They were too young to understand the depth of the resentment I felt. Instead, I simply said that sometimes adults make tough decisions and that their parents would handle the situation. Despite my strained relationships with my children, I was busy with the pleasant hassle of setting up my new home. I moved my belongings out of the apartment, bought new furniture and planted flowers in the garden. My house was gradually becoming a real cozy nest, and I was looking forward to the moment when I could fully immerse myself in their new life. A few days before my family returned from Hawaii, I checked my old apartment, made sure I hadn't forgotten anything, and turned in my keys to the landlord. I was now officially living in Sierra Madre in my own home. It was an amazing feeling to wake up in the morning and know that the whole day belonged to me alone. I could eat breakfast on the terrace, watching the hummingbirds that flew tubfeeder hanging on the orange tree. I could read books I put off for years. I could just sit in silence, enjoying the peace I had missed in recent years. I got to know my neighbors, an elderly couple, Edwin and Dorothy Blackwell, who lived across the street, and a lovely widow, Imogene Pratt, whose house was next door to mine. They warmly welcomed mine to the Sierra Madre community, inviting me to weekly get-togethers at the local retirement club. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive and free. No one was yanking me around, demanding constant attention, or using me as a free babysitter or housekeeper. I was on mourn, and that was fine. But deep down, I knew that Idel couldn't last forever. Mercuria, and her family were due back from Hawaii, and they were about to discover the official eviction notice I'd left in the mailbox of their house. I purposely didn't wait until they returned to break the news in person, where I had already talked about it before they left, and I didn't want another confrontation. Let them read the official paper and decide for themselves how to proceed the day of their return. Came on a sunny Sunday morning. I was sitting in me garden pruning the rose bushes I'd planted a week ago when the phone rang. Mersha's name popped up on the screen. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for an unpleasant conversation, and answered, "Hello, Mom." Mercuria's voice sounded panicked. "What is all this? We just got back and found some kind of eviction notice. It says we have 30 days to vacate the house." "That's exactly what it means," I replied calmly. "The house has been sold just like I told you before you left. You have 30 days to find a new place to live and move." "But you can't." Doffet Mersha screamed. "This is our home. We've lived here for 5 years. It was my house that I let you use." I corrected. "Now it's sold and the new owners are waiting to move in." "Mom, please." Mersha's voice changed suddenly, almost pleading. "Let's talk. You can't do this to us. We have children. They need stability. We just got back from vacation. We're tired. We already talked about this before you left," I reminded him. "Nothing has changed. You have 30 days. We're going to your place," Mersha said sharply. "Now we need to talk in person." Before I could answer, she hung up. I sighed, put the garden shears away, and went into the house to prepare for the visit. I knew it was going to be a tough conversation, but I was ready for it. In these 3 weeks, my resolve had only gotten stronger to occupy the waiting time. I made tea. Not that I hoped the guests would appreciate the hospitality, but I wanted something to keep my hands busy. An hour or so later, the doorbell rang. I opened it and saw the whole family on the doorstep. Mersha, Willoughby, Rowena, and Llewellyn. They looked tanned from Hawaii, but there was no joy on their faces, just confusion and resentment. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. They went inside and looked around. My new house was much smaller and more modest than the one they lived in, but it was cozy and all mine. "So this is your new home?" Mersha looked around the living room. "Yes," I nodded. "Have a seat. If you want to talk, we're not just here to talk me or cut me off. We came to convince you to call off this madness. It's not crazy." He sat down in the chair. "It's a considered decision." Mersha and Willoughby settled in the couch, the children standing around, and certainly unsure of what to do. "Rowena, Llewellyn," I said to the grandchildren, "there is a swing in the garden. Why don't you go sit there while you adults talk?" The children slipped out the door with relief. I knew they were uncomfortable with the family conflict, so I began. "When it was just the 3 of us, I see you've received your notice." "Yes." "Then we can't believe you actually did." Mersha exclaimed. "Mom, we thought you were just scaring us to teach us a lesson, but selling the house, really? I never threatened something I didn't intend to do," I replied calmly. "The house is sold, and the deal is done. You need to look for a new place to live. But where are we going to go?" Mersha's voice sounded desperate. "We can't afford to rent a house in the same neighborhood. The kids will have to change schools and friends. Do you realize what you've done?" "I do," I nodded. "And I'm sorry you have to go through this, but you and Willoughby have stable incomes. You're adults. You can handle it. How can you be so cruel?" Tears were streaming down Moore's cheeks. "We're your family. You're supposed to help us, not throw us out on the street. We've been helping you for years." My voice remained calm. "I gave you almost all for money from the sale of my father's and my house. I babysat. I cooked. I cleaned. I did everything you asked, no questions asked. And how did you repay me? You didn't even think to invite me on a family vacation. Is that what this is about?" Mersha was staring at me, stunned. "You sold our house because we wouldn't take you to Hawaii. Just because of that?" I shook my head. "It was the last straw. For years you used me as a free servant without a thought for my feelings, my plans, my life. You only thought of me when you needed something. And when I asked about a vacation, you said, 'There's no ticket for you.' As if I were a stranger and not your mother." Mersha lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did," I said firmly. "And not just that one time every day. You called and demanded that I drop what I was doing and come sit with the kids every Time you cancelled all plans because you needed something every time you took my help for granted, without wondering if I had a life of me and mum. Will be better. Marcia was openly crying now. Will be different. Will appreciate you. Just cancel the sale, please. It's impossible. I shook my head. The deal is done. The money has been transferred. The documents have been signed. The house is no longer mine. There has to be a way out of this. Willoughby intervened. Maybe we could buy the house from the new owners. Take out a loan. You can't afford that kind of loan, I said. I doubt the new owners would be willing to sell. They've been looking for a house in this neighborhood for a long time. What are we going to do? Marcia looked completely lost. What all adults do. I shrugged. Find an affordable place to live, move and adjust. It's not the end of the world. Mercuria, millions of people live in rented apartments and nothing terrible happens to them. That decades the kids can handle it. I interrupted. They're young, they'll adjust. It might even be good for them to learn that there are difficulties in life that need to be overcome. Marcia wiped away her tears and looked at me with sudden anger. You know what, you're right. We'll get through this without you. If you can do this to your own children and grandchildren, then you never really loved us. Don't you dare talk to me about love. My voice turned cold. I gave you everything I could. And you didn't even think of taking me on vacation. What kind of mother do you want? The kind of mother who does everything you want. I'm sorry, but those days are over. Come on. Willoughby, mercy is up. We need to get kids and start looking for a new place to live. We only have 30 days. Wait. Willoughby, who had been mostly silent until now, turned to me. Balw, understand that you're hurt. And you probably have your reasons, but can't we find a compromise? Maybe you could help us with a down payment on a new place. Or give us a little more time to move. I looked at my son-in-law, assessing his request. He'd always been more reasonable than Marcia. I can give you 2 more weeks beyond the 30 days specified in notice, I said after a pause, but there will be no financial aid. You both work, you have stable incomes. You'll be fine. Don't even try to please her. Marcia hissed at her husband. She's already made up her mind. She threw us out of her life. Like we were nothing, so let us do threesome. You've always had a flair for the dramatic, Mercuria. I said. I'm not throwing anyone away. I just stopped letting myself be used. Big difference, not to me. Marcia cut me off. Come on. Willoughby, kids were leaving. They went out into the garden calling Rowena and Llewellyn, and a minute later I heard their car pull away from the house. I remained seated in the chair, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. On the one hand, it pained me to see my daughter's despair, and to realize that our relationship might never be the same. On the other, I felt relieved and confident that I had done the right thing for too long. I had let them use me for too long. I had sacrificed my happiness for their convenience. 3 days passed and their phone was silent. Neither Mercuria nor Orson called or texted. I tried not to think about them while I was arranging the house and garden, getting acquainted with neighbors, getting used to my new life. On the 4th day, the phone rang. I picked up the phone and heard Orson's voice. Mom, it's me, he said quietly, as if he was afraid of being overheard. Look, I know you're mad at us, and I guess you have a right to be, but Marcia's in a terrible state. She's been crying all day, can't find a suitable place to live. The kids are upset about having to change schools. Maybe you'll reconcile her. No, Orson, I said firmly. The decision has been made, and it's been realized. The house is sold, and the deal can't be undone, but you could help them financially. He insisted. Give them money for a down payment on a new house, for example, and you could pay back those loans you've been taking from me for years. I countered. Then I might be able to help your sister. Orson was silent. We both knew he'd never pay that money back. You know what, Mum, he finally said. Mercury is right. You're just a cruel, selfish old woman. We put up with your quirks for years, and now when we need help you turn your back on us. My quirks, he couldn't believe my ears. Orson, I gave you almost everything I had. I was there for you every time you called. I never said no to help, and what did I get in return? There's no ticket for you. It was just a trip, he exclaimed. So what if they didn't take you to Hawaii? Was it worth ruining your sister's life and her children's lives over it? It wasn't just a trip, I said quietly. It was a final confirmation that I'm not family to you, but a convenient tool, and not ruining anyone's life. I just stopped supporting adults who should have learned to stand on their own 2 feet. Long time ago, I don't want to talk to you anymore, Orson said sharply, and you don't have to wait for Mercer's calls. You don't exist for us anymore. If that's what you decide, I'll accept it, I replied. But remember, it was your choice, not mine, Orson. Hung up the phone, and I heard a long beep. I sighed and put the phone away. Perhaps our relationship really was irretrievably broken. Perhaps I would never see my grandchildren again. The thought hurt, but I didn't regret my decision. My children needed to realize that their actions had consequences, and that I deserved respect, not neglect. 2 more days later, as I was returning from a walk, I saw Mercia on my doorstep. She was sitting on the steps with her arms wrapped around her knees, looking utterly defeated. Mercuria, I stopped a few steps away from her. What are you doing here? She raised her crying face to me. Mum, please, her voice was shaking. I'm begging you to help us. We can't find a place to live that we can afford in a good neighborhood. The kids will have to go to a terrible school. All we found is an apartment in a neighborhood where it's scary to go outside after dark. Mercuria, I tried to speak calmly. I've already said I can't cancel the sale of the house, and I'm not giving you the money. You're adults, you can handle it. But the children, she exclaimed, think of your grandchildren. It's not their fault. I'm thinking about them. I nodded. And no. What I think that it will be good for them to see how their parents overcame difficulties. How they take responsibility for their lives instead of putting it on others. That would be a good lesson. You're a monster, Mercy whispered. How can you be so cold? I'm not cold. I shook my head. I just stopped letting myself be used. And if that makes me a monster to you, then you've never seen me as a human being, just a source of unconditional support and help. We begged you, Mercia exclaimed, jumping to her feet. We came to you. We cried, we begged, and you didn't even flinch back. Because this isn't the first time you've begged me for something, I replied. Every time you want something, you get so remorseful. And then when you get what you want, you go back to your old attitude. I know you too well, Mercuria. If you don't help us now, her voice became hard. You'll never see your grandchildren again. I swear to you, it's your choice, I shrugged, though my insides clenched with pain. And you'll live with the consequences, just like I'm living with the consequences of my decision to sell the house. Mercia stared at me for a few seconds, as if she couldn't believe I wouldn't give in to her threats. Then she turned and walked briskly to her car parked at the curb. You're going to regret this, she shouted before she got behind the wheel. When you're all alone, you'll regret. He watched her drive away and felt strangely calm. Yes, maybe I really will be alone. I may never see my grandchildren again. It was painful, very painful, but it hurt even more to feel invisible in my own family for years. A tool used and set aside when it wasn't needed. I walked into my quiet, cozy home and closed the door. This was my home, my life, my choice, and I wasn't going to back down even if the price was higher than I expected.